All right, we are being joined right now by Mr. Wonderful himself, Phil Davis, the former Bellator light heavyweight champion of the world. He's getting ready to fight Yoel Romero in the main event of Bellator 266, September 18th. The promotions return to their home in San Jose, California. Phil, good to see you, man. How are you?
So good, man. How are you?
I'm doing great. So we're knocking on the door of this one. You versus Yoel Romero. If I told you 5 or 6 years ago when you came over to Bellator that you'd be fighting Yoel Romero in 2021 inside the Bellator cage, would you have believed me?
Oh, man. I mean, that's only half of the story. I mean, you'd have to explain COVID, and I would say, what's a coronavirus? I mean, geez. Well, yeah, man, that's, of course not. That's life. Life just takes you in crazy directions, right?
It really does. How did you react to seeing Yoel, just finding out like, dude, you're fighting Yoel Romero in September? Like, just not really a matchup a lot of people thought about 5 years ago. You were off to Bellator, Yoel was doing his thing over on the other channel, and here we are. How did you react to finding out that Yoel was the guy?
Man, I'm excited. You know, he was definitely he's a fan favorite. He's a guy that I like watching fight. He's a fighter I've always thought, oh yeah, you know, this is the angle I might come out. This is what I might try. This is what I might do. So it's cool to be able to have that opportunity.
We last saw you compete in April at Bellator 257. Second opportunity against Vadim Nemkov. First round of the Grand Prix, the champion now. Really fun fight. You came away on the wrong end of a unanimous decision. What sort of takeaways did you have leaving Mohegan Sun that weekend?
You know, he had the better half of the better first half of the fight and had the better second half. And man, in a 5-round fight, you really have to. I think the very first round is it's crucial to win that one. Very crucial to win that first round. You know, I look back and I say, I should have probably gone to some wrestling a little bit sooner. Wrestling was always going to be a part of my game plan in any fight. But later on, when I went to go to more wrestling, even as soon as like the second or third round, we were just so slippery. It was like, well, nothing we can do now.
just gotta swing and do it that way, right?
Yeah.
What would you say is the biggest difference between the Nemkov you fought in 2018 to the guy you fought in April?
It was definitely better. It was definitely a better, more improved, more polished. He had, in some ways, I felt like he was staying kind of right in his wheelhouse where he knew he was really good. Whereas, you know, in the first fight, he would try things just to see if it will work. You know, and that's where rematches get a little weird. It's like you're hoping that a guy does the things that he did in the first fight so that you can train in those things. It's very difficult. It is very difficult. And the whole time, you know, he's trying to maximize the areas that he did win and not go into any of the same mistakes from the previous fight. So rematches are weird.
Yeah, you've been in your fair share of rematches throughout your career.
What's that now?
So you've been in your fair share of rematches throughout your career. So you know better than most.
Yes.
Well, I mean, here's like a lot of people's takeaways from the fight that I noticed a lot of, because you've probably heard this throughout your career from different fans. Fans in MMA, they could either be the greatest fans in sports or they could be a little fickle. And sometimes you hear they like to use the word boring, but that fight, that was a fun fight. There's a lot of action. I feel like you got a lot of like head nodders out there. Like, all right, that was good. Maybe I misjudged this guy a little bit. Like, did you feel that way as well? Like, did you feel like the aftermath of the fight, people were kind of jumping on board that, hey, maybe this guy that we've called boring over the years, maybe he's a pretty exciting guy after all?
Well, yeah. You know, a lot of times people can jump to one ship or the other because they want you to fight a certain way. They might say, wow, Phil's, you know, He is physically built. We expect him to fight like Yoel Romero. That's, however, not my style. That's not my style. That's Yoel's style. Yeah, it looks like I should be very explosive and knock people out as soon as I touch them. But my style is much more, calculating and drawn out. And I grapple people when I wear them out, and then I choke them or break off their limbs. So it's kind of like expectations. Life is about expectations. When you expect something and it doesn't happen, and it's like, I don't like that. So I think in a lot of ways, people only really expect you to grapple when you're Brazilian. And I'm like, how come I can't be that guy?
I want to grapple too. This isn't fair. That's not right.
Neiman Gracie goes out, spends a whole round on his back. He's setting up triangles and this and that and kimuras, and people are like cheering the whole time. Don't get me wrong. He's dope. He's great. He's amazing. But it's like you said, like I said before, it's about expectations.
Right. Coming out of the loss and being out of the Grand Prix, do you feel like this fight with Romero, the spot you're in, do you feel like do you consider this a really good consolation prize? Did it soften the blow a little bit after the loss of Nemkov, getting a fight like this?
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is the fight that I would look forward to in the tournament, and to somehow get matched up with this fight outside of the tournament. I appreciate every fight because it's an opportunity to go out and showcase my athletic ability. But this fight's this is a special fight.
This is like a bucket list sort of matchup for you?
Absolutely.
What did you think when Bellator signed Rumble? I mean, they're both signed for the Grand Prix. And of course, like, some things changed. Romero had some things he had to deal with, so he couldn't enter the Grand Prix. But when you found out that both those guys were coming over, what did you think of that?
I thought, wow, this is going to get good. It's like, oh man, this is going to be fun.
Do you think Nemkov wins the Grand Prix, or do you think someone else can win it?
I'm rooting for him. I like him. He's a good style. I'm rooting for him.
What does it mean to you to be on this card in particular? Like, not just, I mean, obviously fighting Yoel is a big deal, but being back in San Jose, you're in the main event, first card back in San Jose since the pandemic. This is a very big deal. How does that make you feel that Bellator has the faith in you to be one half of this main event, to put the butts in the seats, so to speak?
Man, it's everything. It is everything to be able to be back in San Jose. Man, I love fighting in San Jose. I love big fights, and this is one of them.
Couple more things before we let you go. I mean, Romero, he's a guy that garners a lot of attention. People are excited he's getting back in there. You're excited to be facing him, but look, the man's been snake bitten a little bit over the last few years. Injuries, just untimely, weird things happening. We just saw it happen before the debut in May. Just kind of weird, unlucky things. Like, are you at all concerned that he might not make it to September 18th? Like, have you had to allow yourself mentally to prepare for that?
No.
Not even thinking about that.
No.
All right. So all positivity. There you go.
Yeah, no, 100%. Someone else asked me a question similar to that recently. What if this happened? What if that happened? I'm like, honestly, I hadn't imagined any of those things happen. I really do. I hope he has, the best training camp ever, and best weight cut, everything, and just kind of like the way I look at things. I want to be the best guy. I want him to show up looking like the killer that he's always been, and I want to triumph over that guy. And if anything else happens, it's a disappointment. That's how I look at it.
It's a good way to look at it. How does this thing play out in your mind?
It's straight fireworks. He's an explosive guy. And when you have that style, you live by the sword, you die by the sword.
Better main event, this one or the Anthony Smith-Ryan Spann fight over on the other channel?
Definitely us.
Just gonna say, last thing before we let you go, I appreciate you taking time on this one.
You threw me straight for a curveball. I was like, wait, who is fighting who and where? Okay, all right, no us.
No, it's got to be you. I didn't expect anything else. I did want to ask you about this because this has been a big topic since this past weekend, and it's been sort of an argumentative point in MMA for the last couple of years. But the oblique kick to the leg, a lot of people. We just saw it on Saturday. Nasty. It's really tough to watch when someone gets that and it hits with full impact. But there's a lot of people feel that the technique should be banned. It shouldn't be happening in fights anymore. Other people sort of compare it to like, well, guys are getting kicked in the head. Like we're watching guys get knocked unconscious, kicked in the head, possible head trauma, brain damage, etc. This is a guy's leg. Trying to compare and contrast the two. So what are your thoughts on the oblique kick? Is that something that should be looked at moving forward as maybe something that shouldn't happen in fights moving forward? What are your thoughts on that?
I don't really care for the technique, but it's a good range finder and it's good for keeping distance. Now, where it becomes difficult is when people use it offensively, and it becomes even more difficult if both people decide to use it. Now you have effectively a stalemate. Both people are keeping a range that isn't going to be really conducive to action.
So not a fan, but should be okay.
This is how I always look at it. You have to look at it through the eyes of, if everyone did it, it'd be a huge problem. So
the rarity of it kind of makes it
to the head. I don't know that would be a huge problem in sport.
It's a weird thing, right? Because now everyone's talking about it, and there's different sides of it. It's very bizarre.
Right.
But you're okay with the technique.
You confirmed something that I thought. There was talk about it already at the gym this morning, and I didn't watch the fights this weekend. So I knew that something had happened. I wasn't sure what.
Yeah, it was pretty brutal. It was bad. You're just like, ooh, and it was perfectly timed. Just nailed it. You went down in a heap, and yeah, it was bad. So yeah, I mean, you've been around for a while. I wanted to get a wily vet, a former champion's sort of opinion on the move, since I mean, you've probably seen it and felt it yourself, right?
Yeah.
Not fun.
Yeah, you got to protect yourself against everything. Unfortunately, not a fan of that technique.
Fair enough. Well, what we are a fan of is the fact that you're fighting September 18th against Yoel Romero. Very fun fight. Main event in San Jose. Bellator is back in San Jose. This is a very big deal. Phil, I appreciate the time, man. It's been a minute since we've had the chance to converse, and I'm glad we were able to catch up, especially on a holiday. This is a big deal. It means a lot, my man.
Thank you. Making time on Labor Day. Thank you, man. I appreciate that.
Thank you. It means a lot. All the best to you on September 18th, man.
Roger that. Thank you.